Welcome to the second of the SVN videos. In this one we're going to have a look at more the day-to-day activities about how different members of the team can update the repository, check for changes, commit their changes to it. And whilst the last one was very much a one-off by way of setting up the project, what we're covering within this is very much day-to-day activities. It's habits and practices that all team members should routinely use. And by way of a little bit of context here, remember from the last one we have two workspaces. In both workspaces we have a project, SuperGame, and this represents two different people working on the project. And at the minute within the Java Eclipse we've got the workspace for the first team member open. So context is here, we assume that they are starting their development for the day, they fire up Eclipse and they get a screen similar to this. Now whenever it's set up it will check with the repository to see if there's any changes that are out of date. If you wanted to force it to do that, you could synchronize with the repository and it would go and check to see if the version that we have here on this machine at this point in time, if that is if there's any new changes that have been committed to the repository that need to be pulled across to this, and there isn't at the minute, so we're happy enough with this. So having that set up, the individual would then go ahead and do whatever coding that they need to do. So I'm just going to put in a little irrelevant piece of code here. We've made some changes to it, it's not pretty significant, but we want to share these rather insignificant changes with the team. So we want to commit these changes back up into the SVN server. Something incredibly important with this, and you can't understate it, is that you should only consider committing things when you are certain, or certain as you can be, that it works, it's not buggy, it's not going to break the build, you're not going to annoy other people by uploading buggy code that's going to disrupt their particular development. So only ever commit something if we're happy it has been adequately tested. It's fundamentally important. You'll notice over in the Package Explorer that we now have a new little icon next to the fragment to represent that it's been changed. And if we were to go into synchronization basically to sync the particular one that we have, and we can do this by comparing it there, we'll see that we have one new file that we've changed, SuperGame fragment, and this little up arrow key suggesting that it wants to be something that would be committed, pushed up to the server. So when we're happy with this, we can hit commit from the menu or commit all changes from the item up here. We commit it, we get a screen coming up saying that what we are going to commit is this one particular file. We should add in a meaningful comment so then other members know what they're getting. So team member 1 has added the counter for whatever reason they wanted to add a counter in for. We do OK, and that's then pushed up to the server, so we have these fragments of code appearing. So far so good. We also can add in, for example, new classes. We can add in new assets. So let's do that, and we'll have a look at how they could be committed to. So if we're adding in a new class, I don't know, let's call it our game screen class. It can be superclass, whatever you need it to be. It's added in, you get a little question mark next to it which is saying that okay, this is a new thing, it doesn't know if that's to be added or not to be added. We could go to our assets, and if you want to get something to assets, say I don't know, it was an image or whatever, we could import in from general something from the file system, and I had put a miscellaneous file in this directory, or resources. So for example, if we wanted to add in resources, we could say, yes, why not? Let's put that in. And it gets included within the project. And again, there's a question mark next to it saying that, okay, we now have resources. Do we want that added in, yes or no? And over from the synchronization point of view, it's showing us that we do have these different resources. Now for Java files that we're adding in, for the type of image files that we're adding in, we don't want to ignore those. So we do want to add those in. So now that we're happy with that, we will commit that. Let's say team member 1, add it, I don't know, the game screen plus resources. I'll do OK. And we've now pushed that up and there's no changes to it. Let's assume at this point that the first team member, he or she's happy, they go off and do their own thing, and the second team member comes in. So we will switch workspace to team members 2 workspace to sort of represent them, loading up their version of Eclipse. And we'll have a look at how we can share these changes. Now when we fired it up, actually you might get the running Android Linux encountered a problem. If you do get that, just a little aside, you can remove it in terms of turning that off, but we'll not do it here at this point in time. So we've pulled it up, we've got our Android game. You should always, when you first come in, we are interested in, the team menu you can't see in this one here, we are interested in synchronizing with the repository. So we start the Eclipse up, we check to see, is there anything changed from last time I did it? And if we run that view, it's telling us, actually, yes, since we last ran this, there's now a number of changes up in the repository that I've made, but I'm just PHANA for both of these. I've got a new asset, we've got a new game screen, they're being added, and we've got a revised game fragment. And I can sort of review these and go, okay, I want to update my version so that I have those. If I do update, they're then pulled across. And if I were to go into my own source, inside here, for example, my game fragment, I've got the counter added, I've got the new game screen, I've got the asset added as well. So that's, in presence, that's the 99% of the time you start it up, you check to see if there's any new changes, you update to the latest version, you make your changes, you ensure you're happy with them, and you then commit it out. And that works most of the time. So let's try something a little bit different about dealing with conflicts. And to a certain extent, they're unavoidable. Well, but largely you can manage your team so that they only happen every once in a while, and I'd suggest doing that. So let's assume that we haven't had a great degree of communication between the team members, and both of them decide to edit the same piece of code. So we're going to have one person editing the code alongside the other person editing the code. So I don't know, let's just say plus equal to 2. So this particular team member, he or she could be either, is in the process of changing this piece of code. So we've changed it, we've modified it. And if we were to synchronize it, we'd realize that, okay, this is something that is different. Now, I'm not committing at this point. I'm going to assume that concurrent to this, we have team member 1 also modifying. So let's go back to team member 1. And we'll switch our workspace back to the first member. Now it's going to fire up. We have that lint problem. It'll be okay here in a second whenever it's built the workspace. So I have my own version over here. This is the last one I checked. There I still have the counter is equal to 1. But let's assume that I'm also modifying this too, and I do plus is equal to, I don't know, 3. So both people, team member 1 and team member 2, have been changing this. They've been working on exactly the same piece of code, and I would counsel you to try to coordinate your activities so that that's not really the case. Each person works on a bit and tries not to conflict with what other people are working on. So let's assume that team member 1, that he or she finishes the change first of all and commits them up. So team synchronization, yes, we have a revised one here. We want to commit this, so this is team 1 updated the counter, and we push that out. So from team members 1 perspective, that's great, made the change, happy with it, it's running fine, committed up to the server. Let's go back now to team member 2. So team member 2 was still working on this here. Maybe they were doing other changes, but they haven't yet got around to committing their change. It was something they were working on, but have yet to get to it. Now, when this starts up, we can check in here. We still have our +2, even though the other members committed +3 to the repository. Let's assume though we've done our own local testing, we're happy with this, and we're going now to commit it to the repository. So when we do, we should always check to see have there been any changes to the repository. So we do a sync on that, and you see now it's come up in red. It says that, oh, hold on, there is a conflict, that changes that I made and would like to commit are conflicting with changes that have been made in the repository. And you really don't want to see those, because you've got to resolve that particular conflict. In principle, it's easy enough. If you double click on it, it opens up an editor that shows you the local file. This is my particular version. It shows you the one that is up on the server, plus equal to 3. And then you've got a difficult decision. You've got to decide which one are you going to maintain. Do I keep my own one and discard the change made by the other person? Do I go with the change the other person has made and update my code? It's not a situation you want to find yourself in. You do want to talk really to the other person and decide what is the best way forward. I can migrate the changes across for copying left to right, right to left. If I copy them across, it'll copy this piece of code here. I could then say that, right, I just want to delete my one, and we could save that. And we've lost the conflict then, because effectively we're using the same structure overall. And in essence, that's how you would go through updating any of the conflicts that you have. But as mentioned, ideally you want to try to avoid those situations and coordinate your activity so they don't occur. So in summary, that's more or less all we need to know. Just have to remember, every single time you fire up your Eclipse with your project, check to see if there's any changes. If there are any changes, update so you're using the most recent version. You can then make your changes, make sure you're happy with them, that they work, that they're reliable, they're not going to break the build. And before you commit, just in case somebody's been working on the same bit, do a final check. If everything's fine, then update your particular version, or commit your version to the repository by way of sharing the changes. And as long as people adhere to that, then the team will get on perfectly fine. We'll be able to coordinate their work easily, at least in principle.